The honourable member for Halifax Citadel Sable Island.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I was, I think, perhaps the last MLA to be invited to join the committee, and I was pleased to do so for a number of reasons. So one, as a former bureaucrat, perhaps a recovering bureaucrat, I can certainly appreciate the importance of bringing together an all-party committee to consider a whole-of-government approach. I'm really pleased with the bill that has actually a requirement for policy making in the provincial government to now take into account issues of anti-racism and equity. And it was also really important to me to become involved because I have yet been able to find a place on the other side of this House to talk about the issues of the 2S LGBTQ+ community. So, you know, the current government was silent in the platform of last summer's election. My community was not mentioned in the speech from the throne. There is no minister assigned. No one has it in a mandate letter. And there's been no policy or funding announcements, to my knowledge, that target the 2S LGBTQ+ community. And so, in a sense, this was one of the first times that I was able to come to the table and speak about the issues that affect my community, which encompasses thousands of Nova Scotians, from Yarmouth to Sydney and everywhere, in all walks of life, not unlike what my colleague described as well. And, you know, and I think I've shared my experience here before about, you know, starting as a young family, as a young person, starting my life. I had to move from Nova Scotia because the rights and privileges afforded my community were not equal to those in Ontario. I had to leave Nova Scotia to take a job with the federal government so that my partner and I could each have access to each other's benefits. I had to leave Nova Scotia because it was illegal. It was illegal for me to adopt children. I could not adopt children. And so we went to Ontario where we could do that. We also had earlier access to like a civil unions and also to legal marriage. So in Ontario, we were able to legally marry in 2003 instead of waiting until 2005 here in Nova Scotia. So for all those reasons, I also know what it's like when a voice is absent from a discussion. And so, you know, we do support this bill. I do think it's an important step along the way. As you've heard, as we'll probably continue to hear from us, we had some concerns around both process and content. We're really, you know, I think it'll be really good to hear from the law amendments process. In particular, communities were engaged. That's true. But we felt the consultation process was quite rushed and also was quite one way. So I was pleased to hear the minister talk about opening up a two-way conversation. What I'm hoping we can learn from law amendments and going forward with this bill is also sort of the multiplicity of conversations that can happen. So in the case of the consultations that were led by the Office of Equity and Anti-Racism, they were sort of community by community, if I will. There were some open sessions, but you know, I've done a lot of work in community and youth engagement, and some of the best conversations happen when you support communities to come together and compare across experiences of exclusion and oppression to really sort of see what's happening in their communities. So we look forward to hearing from law amendments. I also just wanted to raise on the topic of voices that weren't at the table. I actually do think that the committee missed some opportunities to have some other voices at the table. There was no one there speaking for the Acadian community, for instance. There was no one there from New Affairs. There was no one there from the Accessibility Secretariat. So we actually have the resources within government to have brought those voices forward. And we did ask for those, and you know, unfortunately that was not accomplished. I'm just having a quick look at my notes for 1 second. And I think, so in terms of the other process issues, I was greatly concerned that the process was not accountable and transparent as we have established for this legislature. In this legislature, we have Hansard, Ledge TV, we have all sorts of rules and procedures that both govern our behavior, but also are about how we communicate with Nova Scotians what's going on. And so for all intents and purposes, all of those meetings and all of those discussions that we had that were vibrant are lost to sort of the history of this House. So going forward, I'm very happy that we'll be in law amendments where the views of community will be recorded and can be shared. I'd really like to encourage folks to take an active role in encouraging community members to look at this bill and to think about this bill and to engage with it in the ways that they can, and not to take a passive approach to this. And that's certainly something that I'm taking on. And I think, the Minister for the Public Service spoke earlier, talking about the ways in which the public service in Nova Scotia supports diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I reflected on my own experience. So in 2008, we moved back to Nova Scotia, having had access to benefits and adopted children and gotten married. And while working for the Nova Scotia Public Service, actually I was surprised, but just sort of hopped over 2 feet, that there actually wasn't an employee network at that time. So I co-founded that employee network with another new employee to the Nova Scotia Public Service. And we worked hard actually to do a number of things. We actually had a designated position, a designated manager of 2S LGBTQ plus issues within what was then Communities, Culture and Heritage. We had a designated person in the Department of Health at the time, and all those designated positions have actually disappeared. So again, this is why we really can't have these discussions that aren't transparent and accountable around these processes, because then the work slides away. So, I left the public service to do other things, and then slowly, those positions were taken back and reabsorbed. So again, I think this bill will offer the possibility for ongoing sustainable change. We'd really like to see an ongoing mandate established in this legislature to look at issues of anti-racism and equity. Because we can't go back and look at or listen to the discussions that we had, I just want to assure you that we did bring forward these concerns in writing, lots of concerns in writing, to the committee and tabled those. We were able to discuss most of those at the committee, but again, I just want to make sure that people know that, while we had our concerns, that we remained highly engaged in the process. And I would like to echo my colleague from Halifax Armdale, that the funding of this strategy and the funding of this work, this funding of this across government will be really important to see. Thank you.